growth curve. Growth is a process, and we're going to look at the process that occurs. And we're going to look at what is considered to be a standard type growth curve. This growth curve is appropriate for cells, for organisms, for populations. And it can even be extrapolated to things like businesses. So when we look at the growth curve, we're going to see some things that we're talking about organisms or we're talking about cells, and all of a sudden they can apply to other things. Growth curve. It looks like this. You've got time, you've got on the x-axis, you've got number on the y-axis. And it takes off very slowly, and then all of a sudden it skyrockets, then it levels out, and then it tapers off. Let's see what this is about. The first phase is called the lag phase. The lag phase is where things start to get prepared for growth. And in that preparation, it takes a little bit of time to get everything together and everything in the right way. It says in here, if we're looking at cells, we've got extensive macromolecule and ATP synthesis, but no visible increase in the number of viable cells. So if we're looking at a culture, that's what we're talking about. If we were looking at organisms, it takes time for them to get everything together and everything put in the proper way so that you can get a lot of visible growth out of it. So in the lag phase, things take a while before it takes off, and then it takes off rather rapidly. The log phase, log goes back to the word logarithmic, and this is where things increase at an exponential rate. Things double or triple every generation time, and as they do that, they really take off in very rapid numbers, and they get to be very high numbers very quickly. Third part is what we call the stationary phase. In the stationary phase, things remain constant. And as they remain constant, you have the amount of new material equaling the amount of material that's being processed outwards. If you inject new material, it will take off again. If you don't, things will eventually get to the point where it tips off and things no longer remain constant, but you will actually have decreases in the amount that you get. The last phase is the death phase. And in the death phase, the number of organisms or cells coming out or becoming non-viable exceeds the number of new cells that are coming in. And when you've got the death phase, this starts out slowly and then it progresses very rapidly until the entire culture or the entire organism is dead. And in the death phase, numbers decrease at an accelerated rate, and they continue to accelerate as time goes on. We're also going to talk about growth habit. Now, growth habit talks about two different parts. One is called determinant, one is called indeterminate. Indeterminate growth, the genetics and the way the organism is determines how much growth you will get out of it. Now, we're really looking at plants. And as we look at plants, determinant growth means you have the meristem on a particular part, and that meristem gets converted into a floral meristem. And once that happens, you get flowering. And once you've got flowering, things stop going forward. This particular case, you see this banana plant. Banana plants are very interesting. They've got a large underground rhizome. The rhizome puts off these little buds. The bud turns into the banana tree. The banana tree grows along and it grows out and it gets big. And then all of a sudden, out of the center of that tree shoots out the meristem. And this is a floral meristem. And it pushes that meristem all the way from the base of the plant up to the top. And then it comes out and it starts putting out flowers, and as it puts out flowers, the flowers become pollinated, and as they become pollinated, they start to become bananas. Once the banana stalk is finished flowering and all of the bananas are ripe, that entire unit there is gone. It has determinate growth. Now, the rhizome underneath will now produce another one, and it will continue on like that, but each one of these parts has determinate growth. This particular plant, this is century plant, behaves much in the same way. This plant, the leafy part of it was about 8 feet tall, which means the whole unit here is getting up to around 40 to 45 feet tall. It was so tall that the power company came in and cut it down. This plant takes a long time to be able to produce the floral meristem, and that's why we call it century plant. But once it does produce the floral meristem, that particular shoot that it's coming off of is no longer going to be functional. It's going to die away. So the apical meristem that was producing all these leaves turns into a floral meristem, and then you get this huge inflorescence coming out of the top. This has determinate growth. This is a sunflower, And if you've ever seen a sunflower, the sunflower is at the top of the plant. Sunflowers are determinate plants where you plant the seed, it grows up, it produces the sunflower, it's dead. So, determinate growth. It's got a lifespan that is determined by the floral meristem. We also have what we call indeterminate growth. And indeterminate growth means that only part of the meristems get converted and it continues to grow on, and what is going to stop it is something else, but not its genetics. This particular tree was 1,500 years of age when I took this photograph. It had just been going on and on and on and on. And it was a very interesting and magnificent tree, but it had continued on, and it is indeterminate in growth. This is an oak tree. This is a rather massive one, and you can see how big this has gotten, and it's going to get much bigger. What's going to determine how big it can get? Something other than genetics. But if given the opportunity, this will grow and continue to grow and continue to grow for long periods of time. This is a grass plant, same sort of thing. It's constantly producing new leaves, it's constantly producing new stems, and it's constantly growing along the ground, and it will fill in, and at the end of the year, it will look like it browns out, and it'll come back. It has indeterminate growth. These are grapes. Grapes have indeterminate growth. They produce these great big vines. Now, grape growers will come out and they will prune the vines and they will cut them back to make sure that everything is growing healthy. But the vine itself will last for centuries. So all of these have indeterminate growth, and indeterminate growth is, again, one of the ways that we look at growth in plants. Another 3 words: annual, biennial, perennial. Annual means plant is going to live and fruit and die in one growing season. It may have determinate growth, it may have indeterminate growth, but what's going to stop it at the end of the growing season is going to be the climate and not the genetics of the plant. We've got a biennial. A biennial requires 2 growing seasons in order to complete its life cycle. And then we've got a perennial, which goes and takes many seasons to fulfill its life cycle. This is an annual. Take the seed, you put the seed in the ground, you get the little plant, the plant comes up, you can see it produces the broccoli on the inside, you cut the broccoli down, and that's the end of the plant pretty much. You can cut the leaves. Now, if you live in a cold climate, it will continue to come back and everything, but if you live in a warmer climate, it will die off. So it's an annual. It completes its life cycle in one growing season. This is foxglove. Foxglove is a biennial. First year it grows, it's got a low growing plant, it doesn't do much, it looks like it's going nowhere. Second year, boom, you get this great big flower stalk up. It produces flower, it produces seeds, and then it's going to complete its life cycle. This is a tree. Tree is a perennial. It grows, it flowers, it grows, it flowers, it grows, it flowers, it grows, it flowers. So again, when we're looking at growth, many different terms that we can use to discuss these, and all of them talk about growth habit and the way plants grow.